just when you thought it was safe to go onto iTunes. This is Next Level Guy, the only website that makes self-development as fun as going to the movies. It's time to take the red pill and escape the Matrix.
What's happening, guys? It's time for another episode of the Next Level Guys show podcast with your favourite tutor, Ian Dawson-Mackay. Next Level Guys, the go-to men's interview, interest and improvement website where I quiz the experts to find out the hacks, tips, methods and protocols that you can implement in your own life to take it to the next level and live happier, healthier, wealthier, sexier and so much more. Today's guest is the mad scientist Chris Duffin, who's a world-renowned strength athlete, coach, public speaker, inventor and innovator in regards to human movement and training methodologies. Known as the mad scientist, Chris is an ex-corporate executive turned inventor and movement professional. He has positioned himself uniquely in the fitness world, bridging the gap between and working with both the top clinical rehab and sports professionals in the world and in the trenches athletes and strength and conditioning coaches. He promotes and uses evidence-based approaches in developing his coaching and cueing methodologies and strength training equipment. Chris keeps it simple, with reinforcing clean, natural movement patterns and then focusing on building strength. He is the only person in the world today squatting and deadlifting over 900 pounds as bodyweight and is one of the best powerlifters of our age and one of the most respected strength coaches in the industry, period. In this interview, we discuss his recent released book on his life story, strength in all aspects, personal development, self-help, and how you can learn to develop strength in all aspects of your life. And now, let's get to the interview. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I originally discovered you in air quotes when you were working with Mark Bell. I think you were calling Silent Mike a pussy, and you were drinking whiskey and doing deadlifts. You know, you became the mad scientist of powerlifting. You were doing awesome work and that, but I think that's where a lot of people know you from. But you've got an amazing story, which you've just introduced in your new book. But for those who are listening, who've been under the rock and don't know who you are, could you just give a quick intro, who you are, why you're so well known, just a kind of general overview?
Yeah, sure. So I was dubbed the mad scientist by Stan Efferding a number of years ago when I went down and did some work fixing his shoulders, and Eric Spoto, who was at the time the world record holding bench press, did some magic and got him rehabbed post-surgery, and it's just something that stuck because I've been kind of an innovator of bringing new methodology, or old methodology as it may be, back into the realm, and just different ideas around both equipment and training that at the end of the day work. They're all science-based, but sometimes just kind of outside the box. And just like you mentioned the drinking whiskey, there is some actual science behind that. At the timed at the right amount, at the right dose, can actually be performance enhancing. And I've got an article walking through the history of its use, which dates back a long time, and the effects and why it works, which is kind of counterintuitive. Obviously, it has a lot of detrimental effects, but pretty well known for that stuff, as well as generally my feats of strength. I was rated number 1 in the world for like 8 years in powerlifting, setting all-time world records. Probably most well known for my Guinness World Record, which I still hold on the sumo deadlift. So I have the heaviest sumo deadlift in history at 1,000 pounds, which I did for reps. So I'm the only person in any style of deadlifting that's ever done reps with 1,000 pounds. I did it for almost 3 reps. And also makes me the lightest person to ever deadlift 1,000 pounds. Lightest and oldest to do that as well. Lightest we're talking like 120 to 140 pounds body weight, because the other 5 people that have done it are all, your 6.5 foot, 7 foot tall, 400 pound strongmen, versus me at 5'10", 265 pounds. And then I've done a number of other Guinness feats and other crazy feats. Squatted 800 pounds every single day for 30 days straight, raising money for Special Olympics, which are special needs individuals in support of getting them into powerlifting and training. The 1,000 pound was a charity fundraiser as well. And then more recently deadlifted 880 pounds or 400 kilos every single day for 17 days straight, raising money for childhood cancer research. And so yeah, a good mixture of both content around science-based education and training tools, which we output through my business Kabuki Strength, which we've got an education arm and an equipment arm, doing some really unique stuff. So we work with all the top professional, well, not all the top professional, but a good chunk of the top professional teams in the Major League Baseball, NFL, not so big into NBA yet. We're getting into NHL. We deal with colleges across the board. I think we've got like 500 colleges as customers. So all the top United States colleges. We deal with the U.S. Olympic Committee and a lot of track and field athletes, so shot put, discus, some javelin throwing, things like that. We're all over the place with what we produce. So it's generally that's what I'm known for, is strength in the physical nature. And my most recent book is addressing the other aspects of strength, which are arguably much more important, particularly in my mind, which is around mental, emotional, and even spiritual aspects of strength. So it's definitely a passion project of mine, and I wanted to have an outlet for being able to help people, both people that are struggling as well as people that are looking for ways to improve themselves in life, in relationships, and in business, and all those aspects, and becoming a better version of themselves. And so the book is built around messages and lessons to help people realize that a life that matches their values and their goals. That was a lot of content I just threw out there all at once. So,
no, I love it. I mean, when I remember your grand goals, and it was like when you were deadlifting, sumo for like 1,000 pounds. I was like, okay, this guy's legit. But I love how you use in the book, you address the other components of strength. You don't just look at physical, like you said. You looked at emotional. You looked at like reinvention, like the spiritual. Every kind of strength possible. But what was your inspiration for the book? Why did you decide now was the time to release it? Is this something that you just wanted to leave your legacy, or was there a kind of inspiration behind creating it now?
Yeah, so there was an inspiration behind creating it now, and it's really more of having a storyline to finish it. So this is something I've wanted to write for a long time, knowing that my story it's got some power behind it. You've read it, you know what I'm talking about.
It's phenomenal.
And but it's the end goal of the book is being able to realize a vision for your life and execute it. And really that's where I'm at now. I left my corporate career. I founded this company that is the values and my personal values and philosophy are the culture that we have here and how we actually go and act in the world. And it is I'm living every aspect. I'm not a rich person as far as financially, but I am rich in the people that I work with and live with in the life that I have. I live the life that I want. Every aspect of what I do for work and home and pleasure, there's no real cutoff. Everything is all the same. And so I think that's a great way to finalize the story and be able to articulate that aspect of creating the life that you want around yourself. And so without that, I would have dead-ended it in this, really incredibly successful corporate career that I used to have before this, doing company turnarounds and things like that. But it really wasn't, that would be like, oh, here's a great success, but it wasn't the success that I wanted, right? So it was success by a lot of people's standards in the world we live in today, but I wanted more than that. And so there was a lot of stuff in the last couple chapters of that book where I took what was a successful life and took it completely another direction and reinvented reinvented it into the fashion. I felt that was a time that I could, legitimately, finish and conclude the book and feel good about, the conclusion, and that it really is living the messages that I'm saying in the book. Obviously, the story will always continue going on, right? But that was the piece, and it was also a time that really was a lot of, with getting the business up and running the first few years, I was too swamped with that, and so I have been building the team and the people, my leadership team here, and to the point where I could literally step away for the 9 months, 12 months that it took me to put together the book. I was focusing on the book and training and my family life, and letting the team really drive and manage the business. So it was just from a logistical manner, like being able to sit down and do that. I was able to do that. So
no, it is amazing when you see where you came from, like the upbringing, the way that you kind of ground out. It's like repping, the way that you kind of took the weight onto your shoulders, raised yourself up, and then just broke the record and just kept getting better and better. It is a phenomenal, and I think that's what we forget sometimes, is the people we look at have all had their own upbringing, they've all had their own history, their own demons, and we forget about that. And that's what I really liked about your book. Because I've been doing the podcast, I really enjoy finding out about people on a deeper level. And I think a lot of people forget that you're not just a gym person, and you broke the book up into 2 different chapters that are linked to your tattoos. Why did you get a lot of negative feedback from people who said, "Oh, why is this not a self-help book on how to improve your lifts?" I mean, you made me deadlift better, squat better, bench better, but I actually feel like a better person for reading your book. Yeah. Is that the aim? Why didn't you do it? Because you could have sold more copies. I love the way you did it.
This is what I know. So I've had a few people that just bought the book, not knowing what it was about, not reading the synopsis or the reviews, and they're like, "I thought this was going to be a book about training and lifting, and it wasn't." But even so, all the feedback I've received has been just phenomenal. So. You can go check out reviews on Amazon and such if you want, but the personal feedback that I've been getting via messages and emails and all that, it's had a really profound impact on people that have made their way through it, and that's really my mission. So, for the longest time I've signed off every email that I've written as "live better through strength," and I have no idea where I came about just saying that, but that is my message. That is my goal, is to help people realize that struggle and adversity are not to be avoided. They're not only not to be avoided, but those things that we need to seek out. And we do that in the gym, in the physical nature, but people don't realize the rest of their life, is that way. And I've met a lot of people that, have those struggles. And by no means my book is written in a manner like, "Oh, woe is me," or my life is worse than anyone else's, which is not, and that's not the way it's written. It is written to show you how far you can move the needle. If I can go from being a homeless kid in the woods at 6 years old, learning to handle rattlesnakes and bathe himself in creek water and forage for mushroom and kill animals, to putting myself through college, raising my 3 sisters while I did it so they didn't have to live in that environment, deal with murderers, serial killers, human trafficking, all these things, and get to the point where, I am, a sought after executive that's brought in to come in and fix and turn around companies and get them sold to just, before I'm 40, walking away from that to say, this is what I want to do in the world. This is how I want to have an impact. This is how I want to leave my legacy and pare down everything in my life from my personal life. And there's some difficult things I walk through there. from my personal life to my business life to my lifting, every single one of those, I made huge changes to execute that vision. And it's if I can come from there and move the needle that far with those philosophies, what can you do? And so it's a story of self-actualization, and every chapter has the story, but then what are the themes from it? What can you learn from it? How can you take action from it? Yet at the same time doing it in a way that's asking you questions of yourself and not telling you how to live your life, not telling you what your values or goals should be, not telling you, what morality is important, but to ask you and to make you think down the path so you can find those answers for yourself and then live the life that you want. Because I see so many people that just go through the motions of living life, right? And I use the term in the book, they let life live them, It's the living for the weekend. It's just, making do. It's, or
dreading Monday.
Or the people that are living a tough life, and you walk and you ask them, who are you? And they tell you what has happened to them. They tell you the stories of things that have happened to them there. And it's like, well, that's not who you are. Sure, that's had an influence on who you are, but you are defined not by the things that have happened to you, but by your actions and responses to those obstacles in your life. That is the definition of who you are. And so many people kind of mix and match. They, maybe it's victimization or whatever it is, but I'm a such and such survivor. I'm a, that is their story, and that shouldn't be your story. That's what's happened to you that you had no control over. And so, there's that and a lot of other pieces of very usable, actionable information in there. And so for me, it's just the passion of sharing these messages and stories and helping people, because that's what I want to do, and that's what I've always been. Is when I was a leader and executive, I guess I still am. But for me, it was all what I enjoyed from that was the helping people be able to realize that they had more potential than they thought, to be able to take on challenges and obstacles. And when you would see those wins happen, you would see so many other aspects of their life start improving as well. And that's what I enjoyed. It's that coaching, it's that mentoring, it's helping people, it's putting those challenges in front of people. And so what my book is a challenge. And would you not agree with that statement, having read it?
Oh, definitely. I love the way that it wasn't oh, look at me, I've had a hard life. Oh, I should be praised or whatever. You took what are really somewhere really dark places and said, this is how I used my strength to come out of this. And then you gave the theme at the end of, well, this was my story. This is how I did it. Now, this is how you could do it too. I loved that way that you wrote it about. It wasn't just your story, and you used it as a self-help guide for people.
Yep.
To show that it is possible to come from these places. That it gave them the tale. It gave them the explanation of how you did it, where you went wrong, and how, like you've said, and which I particularly loved, was that you're not defined by your BS story. You're defined by your actions to that story. So it can be as negative as hell, but you can decide to make something from it. You can draw strength from it and improve yourself, improve others, improve the world, by your actions. You're not, it's like, was it Fight Club when they said, you're not your job, you're not...
Yeah, actually, I forgot about that line from Fight Club. That's a brilliant work. That's what it's about. And this is, like I said, it's, people may pick it up thinking it's a strength training book. It's going to help you with the mental aspects, and that's the same philosophies that I use to do feats of strength that no one in the world has been able to duplicate. It's been the things that I've brought about world-class performance within companies. I've done the entrepreneurial thing and been successful. In a matter of 4 years, I'm in basically every single major sport in the world. We have an impact in either coaching or equipment. These are things. It's things that you can put to work in your personal friendships and relationships and your family. So it really is a self-help book, but it's like a business book. It's like all those sorts of things kind of wrapped into one. And so, I definitely encourage people to take a look at it. I don't want to, just bash people over the head over and over on about the book here, but I think we did some good service of kind of covering the groundwork that's in there. And yeah, there's definitely some crazy engaging stories. So it's a nice, good read. And by the time your listeners listen to this podcast, it will be available in Audible as well. So it's currently hardcover, paperback, and ebook, but the Audible will be launching next Monday. So really, which I did myself as a little bit of a challenge. My publisher said, no, you need to hire a professional, was it professional voice actor to do this, to do it service. And I'm like, I really think it should be me reading this thing. And they're like, you need to, it's going to be really hard. You're going to hate it. And I'm like, let me just do a test read of like the hardest chapter. And I recorded it and sent it to them. And they're like, okay, yeah, go ahead and do it. And I do a lot of speaking as well, but it's a very personal story with a lot of emotion in it. And I just felt that it was worth it for me to do the work to read it. It was challenging. They were right. But to me, it was really worth that. So
I think it almost had to come from you. I mean, I've listened to some trailers and stuff that you've done on your YouTube channels, and it really kind of, I think it helps you come to peace with it as well. Some because you write about it, you live through it again, and then you look at how you analyze it using your chapters and the themes, the action steps for other people that can use it, who are maybe going through those times just now. But I think also saying it out loud releases that energy out. I don't know again.
Actually, Ian, so the entire process of writing the book and doing the voiceover and all that, you're 100% right. Like, there was a lot of things like delving up the memories and like tying together some of the connections of like the choices that I made, and me just going, oh, wow, aha, of course that's why I did this, and this. Like, in the later half of the book, when I founded the business, I left my wife, I left my career, I retired from powerlifting. Like, I didn't realize that every one of those at that time was fully connected, that I was shedding things and pairing things in a manner that was appropriate for me to realize the vision that I have. And there were some things that didn't align. And now I'm, by the way, remarried and very, very happy. And shoring up all those components of my life. And but it was interesting. Like, it was a challenging process mentally to walk through it with the history that I've had. And that's all I can say to it. Like, once you read the book, you'll understand why. There's obviously a lot of stuff to process and unpack over the course of a life with that amount of scope in it. And I think it was a good thing for me to do personally, without a doubt.
Yeah, because there was parts where I was trying to relate how I would just deal with that alone. I was kind of thinking, how would that affected me? And I was relating it to my own, like, what happened, and when I was bullied in primary school, when like what I thought were bad and negative events, or what I've known other people, and I think, how can somebody come back from this? And that's the true message from it, is it doesn't matter what happens, you can reinvent yourself, you can come back, you've got that personal strength within you. I'd like to cover some of the kind of takeaways I just noticed, even just from from the first season.
Yeah, sure.
There's so many amazing areas and stories and tips and that I would love to go into, but I think we'd be here for about 8 hours. But just to give kind of people the flavour, for example, you mentioned how you grew up in a very isolated area, you kind of lived off the land. Do you think that helped you develop the inner strength that you use now that you had to rely on yourself, that you had to find and forage and, you know, do the rattlesnakes, did that let you develop that inner strength? Do we all have that within us, and we just don't know how to tap into it?
I think we all have it in us, and I think it's an important thing to understand, because people sometimes, when they read it and then see the crazy things that I've done and accomplished in my life, they're like, well, of course it is, because you went through this stuff and it's tied to that. And yeah, maybe there's a tie-in there, but you don't have to, like, you know, have that life of, like, everything is based on your actions. And so it's just a matter of choices. So you don't have to go through trauma to accomplish or do, you know, crazy things. And I say crazy in a good way. But you don't have to have that history. But without a doubt, I mean, I think that it's had an impact on me, right? But at the same time, it's, you know, relate this to training. So, you know, if we stress ourselves too much, everybody's got a different, you know, capacity for response, right? And if we continue to just drive that stress over and over and over again, without an opportunity for recovery, that's when stressors became detrimental. Now, without those adaptations, we don't really grow as human beings, which to me is, okay, so if we're not challenging ourselves, we're literally dying. Just like if we don't train or are physically active, we're atrophying, the process of dying, right? So that's why we should always be seeking challenges for ourselves. So we're talking the difference between trauma and challenge. And so I don't think that we have to have trauma, but you should never be in a position that you're not challenging yourself. So I relate this to, like, maybe 40 years ago you were a war hero, and then something happens, you know, there's an accident in front of you that takes, like, that hero mentality to jump in, and maybe you don't have it anymore, right? Maybe you just don't have that. Why don't you have that? Well, 40 years has passed, and maybe you become soft. Maybe you become soft mentally, you know, just like you can become soft physically. So just because you have something at one time doesn't mean it's always with you. So we need to always be exploring what our limits are. And the only way that we can explore our limits is through taking on those challenges. And I'm getting a little off track here, Ian, from your original question, but it's still tied to the same concepts, because this is why we need to seek those things in our life. Like when you feel like that your gut kind of twisting up in you because you've got, you know, some sort of, you know, that if you have a certain confrontation with a friend or a family member or a boss or a coworker or whatever it is, it's twisted in your gut and you just want to avoid it. You're like, I just don't want to go there. That's the signal for you that this is an opportunity for growth. This is an obstacle in front of you. How can I take this on and come out the other side, right? And it's things like that that are going to make you stronger, better version of yourself instead of the avoidance factor. So I use that like is a piece, is like, I call it the gut check, but it's literally like listening to your gut, and it can tell you like, this is something I could go after. Just like you've got an opportunity in front of you. If it's not like, you know, maybe it's not a difficult conversation. Let's say it's, you know, a business opportunity or a new job offer or something like that. If it doesn't like give you some level of anxiety, make that, you know, that stomach twist a little bit. Like, is it really worth it? You know, is it something that really excites you? You know, there should be some level of being scared that you've got to take on. So you've got to practice. I call it the practice of living in fear. Like, you've got to have these moments and times in your life. And if you don't, I think that you will get soft. You'll be that hero that is no longer a hero when the opportunity, you know, comes up in front of you, because you're out of practice of facing fears, of challenging yourself, and of overcoming adversity. And so, and there's always those opportunities in our life, and they could be small, they can be big, but it's like that should be our driver. Okay, I think I veered completely off of your question. So if you want,
no, I mean, I love that. I mean, it's Well, like when I interviewed Mark Bell, who you know well, he kind of said, like, I love this because I don't get a chance to talk about this, because everybody wants to ask him just powerlifting questions. And I love, like, speaking to you guys because you've built amazing businesses. You have created, like, amazing bodies, but you've also created, like, a brand that attracts people and it changes lives, and, you have accomplished so many amazing goals, and that's for me what I want to find out about. It's the person behind that creates these sort of things, and that's why I always smile when people do go off in tangents, because I can see them linking things and building pathways, and I go, oh, perfect, because I hate asking, why did you do the book? How do I read it? The same kind of questions you'll get 24/7, because I find them boring, when you can just change the name at the top and it's the same answers over and over again. So feel free to go on as many tangents as you want, but did you, because you mentioned in your book how your parents kind of lived off the land, and like your mum and Pat, and you said how that they refused charity and things like that. And you mentioned there about goals, and I definitely agree. If you're not scared of your goals even a wee bit, they're not big enough. But was that the inspiration back then that you wouldn't accept charity? Did that philosophy do you think it got embedded in you, that you wanted to always push for it, always keep going and try and achieve it yourself, that you didn't want your goals just to be handed to you, that you had to earn them and grind them out each time?
Yeah, I don't know if it was a choice though, so much as that was just the life that I lived. Like, when I was going to college, if things didn't work out, if I wasn't able to also come up with the rent payment or put food on the table, there was no one to call home. If I called home, I'd be sending money home. So it was. I've never.
I did like that bit.
It's the way it was. If I went home and crashed on the couch, I'd wake up in the morning with less money in my pocket. So, because it'd be snuck out for alcohol or drugs, but there was never. I've never had a fallback plan. There's literally no couch to actually go, crash on, or bed at home, or that if things don't work out, I don't have any other resource but myself. I have no other option but to make it work. And not only that, but I have to do it for others as well. I was working when I was in high school, going to school, doing sports, and going and working in the evening to help put food on the table for the family. In college, I ended up taking custody of my sisters just to get them out of that environment. And, in retrospect, it was probably, and I talk about, the depression issues that I've faced most of my life in the book as well. I think there's a certain aspect of me actually always having people that I'm responsible for taking care of, as a selfish means of ensuring that I don't go down that dark path too far. Because if I do, it's not me failing or disappearing from the world. It's, what happens to my kids, my sisters, it's something that I've always had a responsibility there. And maybe it's been a selfish reason of self-preservation. I don't know.
Because that's what I noticed in the book, was a lot of times you were the breadwinner, you were the parent, you were the kind of the person who went and got the resources that were needed and that sort of thing. And I always admired the way that you kind of, you took on your sisters when they needed the help. You helped your parents when they needed the help. There was that kind of thing of, you didn't look at it as, well, I need to do this, I need to do my personal stuff. You kind of went, okay, this is what I need to do now. How do I make this work?
It's the people how'd you arrive at that decision? I'm like, there was no, that's what had to be done. What am I not supposed to take care of them? So to me, it's there is no other option. There was no question or decision making, in that process.
So in like the embracing the fear section, you talked about like the fact you basically played with rattlesnakes, and I think we kind of talked about that. Is like a lot of people have too many fallback positions, with their goals. They can kind of go out and give it a bit of a try, and then they can go home and say, yeah, I gave it a try, but it really wasn't for me, and people give them a pat on the back. But you didn't have anything to do that. You didn't have somebody who could give you financial support. You didn't have the additional, somebody that was going to, a night to ride in and help you out. You made it work because you had to. How can we mimic that in our cushy sort of modern living? Because too many men are sitting listening to this going, I'm tough, I'm strong, but they crumble at the first sign of weakness. Apart from going out and catching rattlesnakes, how can we start embracing the fear? How can we start living and really embracing fear and using it to, reinvent ourselves and get better and become stronger men or women? Sorry.
I think it's just the small steps, the small steps of practice. Every one of those opportunities in your life, to, like I said, that and you get that feeling, that gut wrench, and really going, this is what I need to go after. It could be a project at work. It could be a new job. It could be a relationship. It could be opening a relationship. Like, I want to talk to that, that girl or that guy. I keep thinking about it. But, like, these are all opportunities to practice. Just step up to the plate. And then as you practice it, it becomes second nature, right? And that fear starts dissipating and you start moving to the next level. It's like a 1,000-pound squat. If you let that fear override you, and you step under that bar and nothing that you can think about during that time is how you're going to get crushed. You are going to get crushed. So you've got to have that level of anxiety, but you've got to have the practice. And the practice comes from just getting out there and doing it, of acclimating to managing and working with that fear and being able to set it aside when it comes time for the action, right? And because when it comes to taking those steps, you can't be paralyzed by fear. You actually got to be in the moment and living it, right? Your fear is your guide to, like, what you want to take on, but you've got to start acclimating to that. That's why it's a practice of living in it, so that you can become comfortable, because you never know what Wednesday is going to roll along and you're going to get sideswiped by something crazy in your life that you never anticipated. And you're going to get paralyzed. You're not going to be able to respond appropriately. You're going to be frozen in fear, frozen in action, instead of like, I'm used to this world. I can feel that anxiety. I can feel that fear, but it's time to take one step and put it in front of the other. And so you just got to start with small things. So it's just like strength training. You don't walk into the gym one day and go, I want to squat 500 pounds. Let's put it on the bar and do it. No. You start with 135. You spend some time doing that. Okay. 2 plates. It's a little scary. Well, let's go to 185. Okay. I'm a little scared, but let's do this. Okay. Next trans cycle, we're up to 225. Next 3 years, we're up to 4 plates. It's the same thing. You can't just dive in and destroy yourself. But if you just sit there staring at the bar, 10 years is going to go by, and that 2 plates is going to crush you to the ground, right? So you've got to build. It'd be nice if you got to build. You got to build resilience, and you build resilience through your actions. So that's my super secret sauce: is just start taking action on the little things that kind of scare you. And they're going to move the dial, okay? And now, let's get more comfortable. Let's start taking the bigger step, okay? We see this all the time with the entrepreneur, right? The person that says they're an entrepreneur, they've got this grand business plan, and, it's because I want to be rich and famous. I've got this, I need to come up with a brilliant idea. This is what I'm going to do, or I'm buying into this business option. But they never really get after it. They got they got their job waiting tables at the Olive Garden too, and And 3 years rolls by, and they're still waiting tables. But no, they're an entrepreneur. No, you're not an entrepreneur. You're a wantrepreneur. Like, this is because you're not like ready, but you're probably also not ready to just quit your job and dive in. But what are the steps that you can get there so that in 6 months you're ready to freaking do that and step on and actually start moving forward with what you want to accomplish in life? Now, I'm going to go on a tangent here for a second, Ian, on the whole wantrepreneur thing, because of so much out there, and some of the messages in my book might get misinterpreted by people in that groundwork, because it kind of, some of the messaging is very close to what we see with the people promoting what's called gosh darn it, I can't think of the term right now. I'll skip over the term. But the people that are out there, the hustle porn, that's what it's termed, the hustle porn. Like, you got to be in the grind, you got to be chasing your goals, blah blah blah, and
24/7 and that.
Yeah. And so, it's telling you it's okay to be there. It's okay, to be grinding it for 10 years and not making it, because you're gonna do it. You got the hustle, you got the grind. Well, this is where, in the later part of the book, I really start diving into understanding how to understand what your values are, because that sort of life, what those people don't tell you is it's incredibly demanding, right? There is a lot you've got to give. If somebody walks up to you and says, with no experience, says, I want to be a business owner, you should tell them no. No, you don't. Like, what? You don't know what you're getting in for. It's going to be a whole lot of work. And not much, the effort that you're going to have to put in, the sacrifices that you're going to have to make to get there. And maybe your idea is crap, and you're gonna sacrifice for years and years and years and never move anywhere, right? So, and that may happen, and it may take a long time. And I talk about this, in creating visions, understanding like the year over year, just minor movements forward. So the only thing that is really worth that hustle, that grind, is if whatever you believe in, whatever you're trying to make, isn't just about making money, that it aligns with the values you want to live by. And this is something, and people don't, they get attracted. I want the, again, the hustle porn people always love to show you like getting on their own airplane or jumping in their Lambo, and like, don't be afraid of, wanting physical things, just get after it. And I'm like, that's fine. That's fine to want physical things. Again, I don't preach morality. Understand there is some value behind what that object represents to you. Understand what that is, and then understand, okay, what you want from that. And I think that the analogy I use in the book is around, the fancy car and fancy house. Just think down the path. If that's what you want, that's fine. Maybe it's the show off to your, the people that you went to high school with or whatever. But really dive deeper. Ask yourself why, because you could make the wrong choices to get there too. So, and by that I mean, maybe those things, for my example, is maybe those things mean to you security. I've reached a point in my life where I have, and I use that because security is an important thing for me, given my background, right? But if I don't understand that, I can over-leverage myself to get those things and then actually destroy what I'm actually valuing, because now I'm hamstrung with, payments on things that were, supposed to show me security, but I over-leveraged myself so I could have those physical things that represented it. But now my payments I'm barely making, right? And I'm struggling to get by and I'm in an insecure position. So it's really, you've got to dive deeper. Why? And then once you get there and understand your values, then you can start establishing those goals. And then your idea, your whatever it is you're chasing, if you got to do the grind for 10, 15 years, it's worth it. Because that is you. That is your life. Okay? That's what you want to realize, not just make some money. Right? And have a Lambo I can post on Instagram, right? Because if you get there and that's it, you're going to still feel hollow and empty and, live a life that is not fulfilled. And so that's where I want people to dig deeper and also just not chase that, like, the hustle and grind are not worth it just to do it, just to be chasing that dollar, just to be chasing that money. And so it's really important to understand these deeper things, and that's what I'm really trying to challenge people to do.
Well, now would seem a great time to take a quick break, and I just want to give you a quick note about the affiliate schemes I've set up. I've set out some awesome deals with some amazing companies. If you go to www.nextlevelguy.com/affiliates or click on affiliate deals in the blue ribbon at the top of the website homepage, you can go straight to my affiliate wonderland. There are so many special offers, listener exclusive deals, and discount codes available here. There really is something for everyone. It doesn't matter if you're buying for yourself, a special occasion, or that special someone in your life. You can find whatever you need here. There's a lot of interesting companies and inspiring products that you might not have seen before. There's Onnit, Amazon, MeUndies, Barbell Apparel, Dollar Shave Club, and so many more. There's companies that help with dating, with sporting equipment, with tactical gear, with outdoor equipment, gadgets, XXX stuff, and so much more. If you need it, it's there, and stuff you might not even knew you needed, you can find there as well. Simply go to www.nextlevelguy.com/affiliates. That's www.nextlevelguy.com/affiliates, and enjoy. And if you're on the site itself, you can find a link to this in the show notes, or go to the affiliate deals in the blue ribbon at the top of the homepage. Please note, I do not receive any information on you or your purchases or any data at all. All I receive is a small commission from the business as a thank you for sending you to shop with them. This is done by the company itself. It doesn't affect the price that you pay, but it helps me develop and expand the podcast. So I'm extremely thankful for you taking the time to spend your money via my links. You're helping me make this podcast better and better each week and becoming a better person by running this podcast. And I hope you enjoy the stuff at cheaper prices. If you're on the website post, click on the graphic below, go to www.nextlevelguy.com/affiliates, or simply click affiliate deals in the blue banner at the top to enjoy. Now, let's get back to the interview. Cheers. I completely agree. I absolutely love that, because when I started, I just wanted a blog because everybody else had one. But then I started wanting to better my life, but I had friends who started businesses and they quickly gave up because they wanted to have all the material stuff, the flashy stuff, but none of them actually wanted to put the grind in. Like, I'm working in a normal job, come here, prep, do an interview till like 2-3 in the morning, go to work, do jiu-jitsu, no one wants to hear that side of it. No one wants to hear the proper grind or do that work. They want the success at the end of it, but they don't want to put that effort in. And I think that's where a lot of guys are going wrong. We've forgotten to enjoy the journey.
Yep.
The actual challenges.
Exactly. To enjoy the challenges on the way. And it's also the difference that separates a dream from a vision, which I think is really critical, and why I hate, I don't know about the European education system, but I remember when I was growing up, teachers always told me, you got to be a dreamer. You got to dream big. You're never going to, there's no reason not to dream to be an astronaut or the president or whatever. And as I started getting older, I had friends that were dreamers. They're still dreamers. They've never gone anywhere because they just dreamed about that end goal that you're talking about. And a vision is something different. A vision is that end goal, but recognizing how long it's going to get there, all the steps, the maybe years of inactivity of putting in the work and only moving a couple steps forward, and what has to be done, all the work and every step that actually has to get there so that you can be in the Super Bowl with your getting your Super Bowl ring, right? That's a lot of shit that you got to do, and you got to be working your ass off from the time you're a kid to get there. Okay? Dreaming about it, being a dreamer, and showing up for practice in a few games is never going to get you there. And I just hate that. Be a dreamer. Dreamer, you fucking dream all the hell you want. You got to have a vision, and you got to be able to take action consistently and regularly. And to pull that off, this has to mean something to you big. Because otherwise you're not going to have the
That's the thing,
discipline to follow through.
Well, I mean, when I just look at it, like, just from running this podcast, for example, you know, it's like setting up interviews, emailing guests, sending out prospective emails, then it's like prepping hours and hours for each guest, then it's editing, putting the stuff out. I can't imagine the amount that's involved in, like, Kabuki Strength or running Microsoft, or, you know, that's on a completely another level, and it's annoying to see these people who come and expect success just because we've got the option to create a podcast, our website, where that's what I love about the book, is you've shown that it doesn't matter where you come from. If you ignore the bullshit, if you ignore what other people's like you mentioned about, you didn't let negative perceptions of your school friends define who you were. You let your actions and your goals define it. You know, you focus solely on what you needed to achieve, what the end results had to be. And that's what I loved about it, was how many of those guys listening that you're talking about who are sitting there going, yeah, but I'm still able to do that. Oh, I could change our business if I really wanted to. You know, they've got 50, 60 ideas, but they're not going to go anywhere. You know, how do people stop caring what others think then? You know, how, like, the guy that's sitting in the pub listening to this going, I want to change, but every time they do, it's like the crabs in the bucket. Their mates pull them back in and say, no, that's not for you. Because it means they then have to go and think about their own pitiful existence.
Well, the most important thing to success in life, in business, in any aspect of it, isn't some brilliant product idea. It isn't some brilliant business plan. It isn't some incredible software system that's going to give you the results. What it is people. It's relationships that you build. It's the people that you put around yourself, okay? And there's a certain aspect of surrounding yourself with the right people, right? And you see this consistently. People that are successful have successful people around themselves. And it doesn't mean cutting ties with your friends that aren't successful, but it means the ones that are having a negative impact, the ones that are always the negative Nelly, or the, you know, they you know,
we all know them.
Those relationships you need to pair and change and find the right people. And that's like the success of my business. I talked about, I spent this last year working on my book and training and being with my family, because I have an incredible team that's drawn to the values that we have in this organization. And we don't recruit people. You know, we have people that want to be part of this coming here. And to me, that is the most successful thing. And that's what's going to create an incredible enterprise, is having a group of like-minded people. And people love to bash on millennials. And nearly my entire company is staffed with 22 to 32-year-olds right now. And they are the hardest working people that the best team I've ever been surrounded by, because they're the ones of it that actually, they care about what we're doing, and they'll work above and beyond day and night. And so having the right people in your life, and those relationships will make everything, your personal life, your business life, your friendships, are those things. You need people that are going to be supportive. They may be negative at times if they're calling you out on your actions. Understand the differentiation, because we don't want to fill ourselves with yes men around ourselves, okay? But there's a definite difference between a yes man and somebody that is shitting on your dreams or your work, because it's a reflection on what they're not doing with their life, okay? And so understanding that the most that you can accomplish in your life is from the relationships that you have with people, and the most value that you can get in life as far as like fulfillment, success, enjoyment, like all these things are going to be, at the end of the day, it's not how much cash you've got in the bank. It's the people around you. This is what you need to invest in more than anything else. So investing in developing those relationships and making sure those relationships are the right ones, and pairing out those that are going to be negative, that are detrimental to that. It's a must. If you really want to drive forward, there's stuff that you have to do, and that's, I talked about, getting divorced and remarried. Same thing for me. Like, I needed to have those things at home as well, and not have something that was holding me back, and that required tremendous change on my part, with potential negative impact on my children. Turned out not being so. We were able to manage that appropriately, but I needed to do that in all aspects of my life, and I tell you, the difference is astounding. So,
because you sort of touch on that in the book, where you talk about, like your time with your grandparents was great because it gave you a chance to absorb what happened and change. And then I think it was the time when you gone back to Lapine for the second time, you talked about making some really strong friendships and stuff. So how do you identify these people that you were talking about? How do you know that the guys that you're picking for your team are the best for you? That they're going to help your mission, your brand. How, what do you see in a person? Because I think with your story, you're very great at picking people who matter, who, like, you seem to have a very analytical kind of approach, and you really kind of understand humans, and, you go out your way to help people, but you definitely kind of judge people's characters and stuff, in a good way. I mean, you kind of understand where their real emotions, their real, the real desires are. What do you look for in somebody like that?
I'm not sure that I can tell you, Ian, because that's a very personal thing, based on, again, on like where you are as a person, what your those values and goals, and so that would almost be down the path of me, like, telling you what you should be, or telling you what your morality should be, or how you should live your life, or any of those things, because it is going to be different, right? It's going to be different based on those things. So I think having a good understanding of who you yourself are, and spending the time on that inner work, is going to help you be able to see that in others a little bit better. And I make mistakes, and I think I talk about some of those in the book as well. I'm not, and it's okay to make mistakes, but we've got to kind of correct those and move forward. So I'm not sure that I have really some fantastic advice in that manner, other than really understanding yourself a little better and doing that inner work. And I think that's going to give you a better outward perspective.
Because it's really difficult. When I first started reading the book, I was like, okay, I'm going to talk about that, and that. And then I started thinking, but the overall message of the book is this. And it's difficult for me not to talk about the overarching themes, because they're brilliant, and it's really motivating, and it's inspiring, and it helped me view things differently just in my own life, and how I can relate to other people I've interviewed now and understand what they were saying better. But I also want to go really deep into this, because there's so much from this book. I mean, what would you say is the overarching theme? Would you still say it's on the reinvention of yourself, that you can achieve what you want? Is there, how do you want people to see you as a person after reading this book? Is this, were you worried about how people might react to what you were saying in the book?
It was difficult to write it knowing that all this was going to go into the public forum, right? Because especially talking about my issues with depression, past alcohol issues, some of the things I've been through, and so that was definitely there. But at the end of the day, I wanted people to see also my strength in being able to share those stories and share those things, because I want to help them in a fashion, right? And so the biggest themes for me in the book is a matter of just the piece around self-actualization. You get to decide who you are as a person, okay? and then you realize that through your actions. You can become whoever you want to be. So we can cover that in the reinvention aspect, but it really is just a matter of deciding who you're going to be and just setting out and executing and becoming that version of yourself, right? And so that's probably the biggest overarching theme, and the other is just the story around strength. That strength should be additive, but it's something that has to be developed, and we must challenge ourselves and continually move forward. So those are the biggest messages, and they're really basic messages. I'm not throwing out any epiphanies or something that anybody's gonna go, I already know that. But the way that it's articulated, I think, will help people get there.
Because that's what I really liked about the book. It wasn't preachy. It wasn't like, this is the only way to go. But you showed how you really developed yourself as a person. I mean, I liked the part where you mentioned about using adversity to power your development, how you talked about being a nerdy kid who used fitness to counterbalance that belief. And everybody that knows you from powerlifting looks at you and goes, fuck, like, the guy's a beast. I would never kind of like overstep or Do you still see yourself in that kind of, as a nerdy person, as that boy who's catching rattlesnakes and stuff like that? Has this kind of allowed you to deal with some internal demons, looked at your relationship with your parents in a more positive light, or made you accept that period? How have you kind of used this? Is it almost like a kind of a healing process, a kind of way of putting the chapter to bed to then let you reach the next level? Sorry, ignore the pun. But the next level of your development. I really struggle to say it, because I always say it to people and I think, no, don't mention your bloody podcast.
So yeah, I think the biggest epiphany for myself in writing the book was, my mother's goal all those years was to be able to create a life for herself disconnected from society, to be living off grid, having her own deal, and not part of this world that the rest of us interact with, right? And really just not being bound by the rules, like, not in a negative way, but like, here's my own set of morality, here's my own set of like what I believe, and I don't want to live in this world where everything is, controlled and rules and all this. And it was realizing, how much of myself was in that, because I'm reflecting back to high school, and I received this award from the whatever fraction of the Army, I don't remember, but they gave me this big award for being the student athlete, and they were trying to recruit me. I was the best athlete and nerd, and my mom was saying to me, she's, because they were trying to recruit me, and she's like, you would not do well in the Army. And I was like, well, why is that, Mom? Like, I'm just thinking into my, my own thinking to myself at the time, like, I follow rules really well. I'm really very I perform really well in school and sports and all this sort of stuff. And I didn't really see that in myself at the time. And now, reflecting back on my life, I look at it and I'm like, wow, I was really, really stubborn. Like, the getting hired by the unethical guy that that owned the aerospace company. That he wanted me to do all sorts of stuff, and I literally got him fired and barred from his own company, and then I fixed it under my rule. Like, I'm like, that doesn't. I do not agree with what you're doing. This is highly immoral and illegal, and I want no part of this. And you're gonna go goodbye, and I'm gonna fix this the right way. And I'm like, who does? I'm like, that's not normal. And
it's amazing. You see what you want to see about yourself, don't you? You'd ignore all the bad
So then
stuff.
I realized like that's literally like, so when I talked about, retiring from powerlifting, making changes in my personal life, starting this company, I'm like, oh, at the end of the day, I was trying to do the same thing my mom was. Like, I don't want to be bound by other people's rules and schedules and all these things that I've been working within for all this time. And that's, I was after the same thing. I got there a completely different way. I don't live an off-grid, I don't live any off-grid lifestyle, but I come and go as I please, and build the framework. The framework of my life is what it is, not somebody like, well, our schedule is 7 to 5, and this is what you need to do. It's everything is literally on my terms. And I quit powerlifting after 16 years. Same thing. I still do train. I still compete in a fashion through my fundraisers and stuff like that. But everything is completely on my schedule, on my rules, on my terms. And so I literally divested myself from all these things at one point in my life, not even realizing like the background influence that my mother had on me in that manner. That I am just the same stubborn, obstinate person that doesn't want to be bound by other people's, what other people's, want to see.
It's not always a bad thing. I mean, I love that realization that you had. Like I would be reading the book and I'd be seeing myself at a different level, but I would understand where you were coming from and kind of adapt and go, oh, that makes sense now when I think back to my situation. But there's also like the way everything is kind of knitted together in your story, because there's a theme where you mention about, I think it's select your strengths, or find your touches on but I think, oh, that's a great. And then I started looking where you talked about your wrestling, where you found 3 moves that worked for you and you focused on them and you made them perfect rather than quantity of moves. You went for quality, and you did a sort of brilliant reaction to that, And it's kind of like, as I noticed, you select your strengths, where you talked about, the time that you were busking tables. So you put a framework in to work the restaurant better. You use protocols and procedures to work out how to run it better, more efficient. So you used your strengths to kind of, and you see it, all these little kind of patterns of things. And that's what I loved about the book, was there's little snippets and gold that you could open it anywhere and use that and adapt it to your own life. But did this help you realize anything else about you as a person? Did it make you kind of figure out something? Did it change a deep withheld belief that you've always held? Did it make you appreciate a strength that you've maybe never really thought about or considered before?
I think the biggest one in there down that line is I've always found my strengths to be, on the intellectual front, like the ability to handle a lot of different things and see a lot of different connections. And you see that in the work that I do in the rehabilitation world, and the blend of different philosophies from different schools of medicine not medicine, but different schools of literally different schools of rehabilitation processes or movement, things like that, right? But what I didn't realize the skill that I had in basically building relationships, building the network of people. So, I was just sitting there and I'm realizing, hey, my company performs incredibly well because of the philosophy around education, which, my education team is really fleshed out, but conceptually that was what I came up with. I've got an engineering staff that, finalizes all my designs and does all that stuff, but all of our designs, like we have these really innovative stuff. I'm like, this is what's driven Kabuki to be successful. And I started thinking about it in the process of the book, and I realized, I'm like, no, actually, I think the success is the validation because of the relationships that I have developed. I didn't even realize that I did it on purpose, and that the impact that it would have. Like, I'm like, oh, so yeah, I'm personal friends with the best spine biomechanist in the world, and the best most well-known physical therapist in the world, and the list goes on and on, like down that front. Like, it's like, oh, like, wow, I've got an incredible network of people in all these different environments. Like, you talk to a normal strength person and they don't even have interactions with like the researchers and clinicians that I do, right? Or, in or people on the research front don't have the interactions with. I'm like, oh, well, let's talk to the head coach of, so-and-so, or let's get into the biomechanics lab at the LA Dodgers, or, it's like, I didn't realize that I was a relationship person, because I viewed myself as an introvert growing up. Like, I was a very quiet and secluded individual just because of the environment that I had, right? And I think in the last few years, I finally came to terms with, okay, maybe that's not the case. Maybe I'm not an introvert, even though I still, get really drained from, conversations and interactions and people like it doesn't build me up. It, is a draining thing for me. But there's something about like how I interact with people and building these like incredible relationships. I was sitting there. This is kind of a funny story, but maybe it was. We've got prior to the book release, right? I'm like, well, I'm like, who would be like the coolest person ever to have my book and read it? And I don't know if he has it yet, but I'm like, God, it would probably be The Rock. He's the most famous person in the world according to Instagram. He lifts weights. He's a movie producer, like, and an actor. I'm like, who knows where that could go, right? So I'm joking about it with my wife, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get in The Rock's inner circle. This is 6 months ago. 3 months ago, I've got a connection with his trainer. The Rock, if you go on you can go, actually, he was on, ESPN last night, and he was lifting with one of our bars. He's got 3 bars in every one of his home gym locations, and he has them shipped to wherever he trains at. His cousin and his stunt double uses our product, and he just like did a review on my book on his Instagram page and threw it up in his bio for the couple weeks. A link to the book on Amazon. Like, I'm literally within a matter of months, I'm connected within The Rock's inner circle, and I had no relationship to it before. Like, I'm like, oh, how did it like? Like the ability to do that, to be able to reach one person, the next person, and kind of build and foster those real relationships, not connections, but real relationships. Mm-hmm. And that was a realization for me in this last year of writing the book, that may be my most powerful trait. And I had no clue about it before, and it didn't fit my view of my own personality up until more recent years.
Because, like, whenever I've seen you before or in other interviews and stuff, you always seem to have that way of connecting with people, of going deep in that. And that's where I always found it strange when I was reading the book where you were on about, like, you would just pick up your books and go straight to the next class at school. You didn't know how to deal with people. And I was reading that and I was thinking, like, I used to always be that person that had to put on the show. I was I might be shitting myself inside, but I maybe have to speak to somebody because I couldn't, it was so awkward, I had to try to make an effort to make friendships and that. And to see that side of you is what I was like, this is amazing, and it's to see how you can come through that to creating a business that, that makes thousands of gym goers better. That's in like some of the biggest names in the fitness industry and movies are using your products. You've created a line of amazing feats, To see you doing that, it's so inspiring. I mean,
you could ask anybody in high school that I went to high school with, like, do you remember Chris? And they'll know me now because everybody knows me, right? But they're like, I didn't know him then. He was just the quiet kid that never said a word. Like, that They literally didn't know me, like, because I was just damn near a mute, like I had a few couple friends that I interacted with, and that was it.
And have any of them kind of approached you since the book launch? Have they come and kind of made peace, or have any of them resolved anything, or has anybody from like the places you've grown up got in touch and kind of maybe kind of not settled a score, but kind of just help, like kind of close a wound?
Yeah,
or,
I don't know that there's
kind of
I don't know that there's any bad blood or wounds that need closed, but there was a family that I lived in the mountains with for a number of years, and we homesteaded together, and I reconnected with them, and actually me and my wife and all my kids, I've got 3 kids, by the way, all went down with their entire family and went to Disneyland for a week together, and that was really cool. Like, it's literally like all these people, one's a police officer, another's a home builder, and but we were this hippie family living in the woods in Northern California, 40 years ago, and so that was really kind of an interesting experience. So.
Well, that was going to be something I was just going to bring up, was at that point you mentioned in the book where you are the legal guardian for your 3 sisters.
Yeah, not anymore. But,
and,
yeah.
I mean, that is a phenomenal thing to do. I mean, I've got an older brother, younger sister, and the thought of my brother looking after me, knowing him now, is terrifying. I can't imagine, at that age, it'd be just shocking.
Well, I definitely have an interesting relationship with my sisters, so it's because I am their brother, but also like a father figure as well. I walk them down the aisle for getting married, that sort of stuff. But it's like we've got a very unique relationship, and that I value a lot. So
how did that shape you for your own becoming a father? And did it change your? Did you understand maybe something that your parents did that made sense then? Did you did it tie you up a relationship, something that you did with your sisters that you it made sense to you by something you went through with your own kids? Do you think it's made you a better parent? How has it sort of adapted how you view the world, parenting, and that now that you've become a father?
It's we could spend quite a bit of time, I think, on this concept, because I think that's.
I'm trying to keep them general, but
I think that's an interesting thing that's going on in the world today, is how we parent, and the impact that it's having, because we have so much available to us, so many resources, so little challenges, that creates issues. And when I was raising my sisters, it was much more of a hands-off approach. Like, I challenged them to be going out and doing the things like getting their GD, get a job, so on. But it was, they had to become self-sufficient on their own, right? And I didn't hand them success. I expected it of them. And I think that was a good thing, right? And it's something I'm trying to figure out today as I have my own kids yet again. Is how to give them the world, but at the same time not give them the world, right? Because
give them the keys to go and find it, but not
they
give
need
it to them.
They need to own and create that. And I did that with my 3 sisters, but I need to. It's different when you have your own kids, right? Because you just I don't know. It's because I don't want to see them. I want to see them have everything. I want to see them have the things I didn't have, and so that is something I'm trying to figure out, because there's they need to they still need to drive and own it themselves, and trying to figure out how to make that happen is something that I think that'll be an ongoing process over the next few years as they get older.
Well, I've just got a bit of a shock because I noticed that we're way over time, so I can only apologise for that. But something, I mean, apart from sort of the last couple of questions, something I was really keen was the motto of the book for me was, there is always more. Could you just give a little overview of that? You know, how could people listening to this use that as a general kind of call to action for their reinvention? You know, the guys that are maybe in dark places just now, who want to become more like you. How can we use there is always more?
Thank you for pulling that out. That's also something we cover substantially in our seminar base, not on the side that we're going to talk about here, but on the movement side of it. And you know, people, when you say that in regards to the training, they always think, well, you mean putting more weight on the bar? Like, no, that's not what we mean. It's a matter of making sure. Well, let's first take a step back. So I talked earlier about, you know, pairing relationships and making sure that they're important and going to be the ones that move forward in life. There's the same process that needs to really happen with everything that you do. This is why, again, getting back, I'll just freaking, you know, kill the same concepts over and over again. Understand your values, create your goals based on that, right? Now, analyze your life and figure out what you doing that doesn't align with it, okay? Because anything that you're doing or moving forward on should be aligning with what it is and how you want to live. And so those actions must be done with intent, with purpose. There's a reason you're doing it. So don't be going through the motions of it. Always be seeking, how can I be better? And it doesn't mean, again, in the strength training world, putting more weight on the bar. How can I be executing it better, with more intent, with more purpose? Like, don't be just doing things to do them. Understand those reasons behind it and push. You could always be better at what you're doing. The quality of it, the intent of it, the passion behind it. Okay? Look at your relationship with your partner. How can I improve it? How can I be better? Don't just let it be something that is part of your life that is just like, oh, we just live it. Is that an important thing for you? There's always more. You can always be reaching deeper within yourself. Okay? So it's important when we think down the concept of there's always more to also understand we've got to ditch shit in our life. Okay? Because you can't do that with everything that you're doing. So first is making sure that we're dropping those things that aren't. And then the things that you are, you know, it's best to have an example to work with this as we're talking about there is always more. And I use a lot of those in the book. We do use a lot in regards to movement and training philosophy. But that is the core nugget of there is always more, is to put intent, purpose, and passion behind it, because there's a reason that you're doing it. If not, knock the shit off, quit doing it. Take it off your plate. Don't go through the motions with things in life. They're important to you. Dig deeper.
Because since I've read it, I've found myself about it'll do. And then I hear your voice almost in the back of my head. Like my jiu-jitsu coaches, sometimes they give me a little snippet that sticks and helps the technique. I hear your voice going, there's always more. You know, and you go, okay, let's put proper effort. Let's get this to the level it should be.
I could have a company making a little tidbits of minorly successful products out there. I could have my off-road rig and be doing a little bit of four-wheeling here and there. I could have a family but come home and be disconnected with my relationships with my kids and spend all my time on my phone and not engaging, right? I could be doing all that and a whole lot more. But people always look at me and they see the things that I'm doing. They're like, how do you get so much done? I'm like, well, because it's all the things I don't do, okay? Our company, we try to be the best in the world at what we do for education and products. and we're killing it on that front. Okay? When I'm with my family, I try to be engaged as I can be. There's moments I have to step away and do work as well, but it's a matter of when you're there, being present, being part of it, okay? Having that passion with your relationship with your significant other, okay? I mentioned I do off-roading. I'm building a vehicle from ground up that is one-off in the world. Like, there's nothing else like it. So for me, when I say there's always more, everything that I do, and I just mentioned it, my lifting is important to me. Family is important to me. What we're doing in the world with Kabuki Strength is important with me. And my one minor hobby is fabrication and off-roading. Every single one of those should be world class. I can always, and then yet still always be better. But try to tell me any one of those isn't, and you're wrong. Like, nobody's can duplicate any of those things that I just mentioned, right? You would argue on the family. I don't have a metric to say, that's world class or not. So, in my view, it is. But, but it can still be better, And so, those are examples that I can throw in front of you because they're evident. You can look every one of those is on social media or a website or something for every single one of those, and without a doubt, they are at the level I just said. But I'm also not golfing every other Sunday and watching football and going for hunting here and there. There's a lot of but it's not to say that I don't enjoy it. Like, a lot of that stuff was hobby fun stuff for me, right? So you can't do everything in the world. So
you can do everything mediocre, or you can select your strengths and do it world class,
exactly.
like you said. And
but only if you put fucking intent behind it. Excuse my language. I've dropped a few F-bombs here towards the later half, but it's to accentuate points.
And you're doing it to emphasize points, and what you're saying is true. I love this podcast. It's like you're speaking directly to me, and you're cutting the crap out of my life. You're helping me evolve and be better, and I forget that other people are listening too. I know we haven't even gone really deep into a lot of the aspects of the book. I cannot think it's going to be anything but a roaring success. I'd love to have you on again and really go into your grand goals, weightlifting, your off-roading, you're like building the business. It's phenomenal to see what you've done, and I respect you even more for reading your story. But what do you want people to take from this? What do you want if they only say remember one thing from this, or a take-home message, what would you want them to think?
God, I just want to say, go check out the book, because I've spent so much time putting those messages in there, honestly. But that sounds like a sales pitch, which it's not, because that's not. I didn't do it to sell books, but I wrote it to share this with people. And I just say I'm just gonna wrap it up with, you can check that out. Or, follow me on social media if you want to get a perspective of kind of what I'm talking about, and see if you want to get, involved further with some of the things that I'm talking about. So, you can find me. I don't interact on Facebook, but I'm on Instagram, Mad Scientist Duffin. You can find Kabuki Strength as well. My personal website, ChristopherDuffin.com. Kabuki Strength, main company. I've got a few other business ventures as well, but it's not out here really kind of pimping that stuff. But it's, everything that we've talked about is just living a life that challenges you and choosing to accept challenge to become a better version of yourself. And I try to present that with my own actions and model that and show people what it can be. But not at the same time like saying I'm the most amazing person ever. I did just freaking say, oh, I'm world class, this, that, whatever. But like, I'm trying to articulate points, right? And so that's the message that I'm really trying to get across there.
It's a book about you, but it's a book
to
help you.
100% written. I really put a lot of effort into making this something for you, the reader, to like be able to take action and evaluate your life. And I know you've read it, so you know what I'm talking about. Because I didn't want it to be a oh, look at how amazing I am type thing. What does that do for anybody? Nothing. Yeah, I mean, it could make a good story still, but it's just not like, it's not what I'm trying to do in the world.
You made it about the person reading it and about their future, their success, and that's what I loved about it. Even now, you're still giving back by using your story as a chance for other people to reinvent themselves, and it's going to smash it. I think is it third on Amazon all
it's a bestseller in 5 different categories right now. Again, we just launched it like 3 weeks ago. 5-star, nothing but 5-star reviews. And like I said, it's incredible seeing the feedback and the impact it's having, because it's really having people look at their, like, I don't know how else to explain it. Like it's doing what I hoped it would, and which is having an impact on people. If I can help drive people to it, to buy it, to get to change their world from it, to give something back to you, if it's financial, if it's people reviewing it, giving you reviews of it, I would love that as a thank you for the help you've given me through like all your videos, but also like just from reading the story, it made me understand a few things from my own personal point of view, and that was, to me, was amazing. I could look at your story, which is completely different to mine, and go, that makes sense. I've had that feedback from a few people. Everybody should get a copy. You'll see that in some of the reviews, like basically the same statement you just gave. So, do you find that strange? Like, because it blew me away. I was kind of going, a guy who lived in the mountains in America could link with my story in the Highlands of Scotland. I go, oh my god, like I can see myself there. I think it's because I draw out the themes behind it. That people can kind of connect and go, oh, there's his story, but we've all got the stories. We've all got the stories, right? And you can connect it to your life and your stories. Yeah. Well, if I had to give one message to every listener just now, I'd say get a copy of this book, because it will change you, it will reinvent you, and if you get, you can start from any point and succeed. You might not be the next Kabuki Strength in the world, but Chris gives a framework, he gives a platform to go and find and build your success from there, and you're changing lives, and it's a hell of a good read. And so get a copy now.
That's it for another week. Thanks for listening. Absorb it, practice it, use it. Until next time, keep trying to hit that next level in your life.